You are also sitting as a very esteemed professor, very highly accomplished, highly educated academic who believes in God, who's a scientist, a physicist, thinker. What would you say to someone who says, you can either believe in science or God, but you can't believe in both?
So yeah, I do run into that belief system sometimes. I guess the what I'd say is that for me, I found that walking the journey of science and faith, I don't find them to be two totally separate and incompatible approaches to the same sorts of questions. What I've rather found is that they're actually very similar approaches to very different questions. That, the sorts of questions I deal with in science are things about trying to understand, how the universe has come to be and the laws of nature that describe it. Um, and I would say that the sorts of questions that I find answers to in faith are questions about meaning and purpose. Why is there a universe at all? Why does it exist? Does it have any meaning behind it? And so for me, I'd say that the sort of the same approach that has led me to what I believe about my field in science has also led me to what I believe about faith and to my faith in God. And that so I think that those two similar approaches can lead us to both science and faith, as long as we're sort of using science to answer questions that science is good at answering, and using faith to answer the sorts of questions that faith is good at answering.
On that, it sounds like it's kind of this non-overlapping magisterium where they answer different questions. But I'm curious, are there any realities of science that could point to, say, the singularity, for example, from a cosmological perspective? Could that point to a beginning that perhaps might point to the need for a transcendent source? What I'm trying to ask is
Yeah,
there anything in science? Are they totally separate, or are there observations within the scientific world that allow you to make assumptions, or that have implications towards the possible existence of God?
yeah. I don't think they're totally separate. I think that they're maybe more separate than a lot of people think, but also not as divorced as some people think either. I think that for me, within my field of study, um, the fine tuning of the laws of nature for intelligent life is something that I think points towards the existence of God. Sort of it turns out that all these laws of physics, the standard models of particle physics and cosmology, have these parameters like the mass of the electron or the mass of the proton and these sorts of things. And if you were to just change those parameters a little bit, you'd find a universe that doesn't allow for life at all. And so some people, myself included, think that this is pointing towards some sort of intelligent designer that has sort of tuned these knobs exactly where they need to be, in order to give rise to a universe with life, with intelligent life like us.
Hmm.
So I think that there are arguments from science and maybe glimpses of the divine that we see in science. I also think, we started talking earlier about miracles. I think miracles also represent sort of maybe more of a direct connection between the scientific realm and the the divine, the supernatural, where we see, I think, in moments in the story of Jesus, these times where the laws of nature break down. But um, I think it's possible to have sort of a high view of science as being the thing that describes the world, and nature 99.9% of the time, but also that there's this larger, greater truth that can sometimes supersede those laws. I think something that, especially with miracles, I'll say that I found compelling was, I guess, coming to this realization that as an atheist, back when I basically believed in naturalism, I think that miracles bothered me because I viewed them as sort of a breakdown of the way that the world was supposed to be. The world is supposed to follow these laws of nature, and miracles are just like, it's like that messing. It's like science failing or something. But what I realized in is that in Jesus's framework, miracles don't represent a breakdown of the laws of nature, but actually they represent a restoration of the world to the way that it's supposed to be. That the world
Mm.
isn't supposed to have evil, and so Jesus casts out demons, and isn't supposed to have sickness and disease, and so Jesus heals the blind and cleanses the lepers, and it isn't supposed to have death, and so Jesus raises the dead and ultimately conquers death through his resurrection. So I think that that's it's science. Like, I can both appreciate science, but also recognize that there's this greater reality that that is in Jesus, that sometimes can take these laws of nature and not really, and not break them in a sense, but actually restore the world to the way it's supposed to be.